orientation to the street helps to mitigate the appearance of the garage doors. The commission may want to discuss options and obstacles to separating those garage doors with the applicant. And then, but staff does support the single garage door as proposed, assuming some of my assumptions are correct. The style of the garage is intended to reflect the now contemporary appearance of the home, which does feature the large shed roof addition on the east side of that building at the lower level, but visible from the street. That's what I was just mentioning about it does provide some sort of balance with the way that those would be seen in connection with the house itself. In regard to item 10.9 under in regarding lighting, information on lighting installed on the garage hasn't yet been provided and can be submitted either before or with the building plans. Again, I don't know if the applicant has information to update you tonight, but staff does not mind if the commission is in favor of it, reviewing that lighting at the time of building permit. It's going to be and should be fairly unobtrusive and not a major design feature, but we do want to make sure that it's downcast and has cutoff shields as appropriate and doesn't create problems either for traffic, interference with traffic, or issues related to shining into other properties. I did also note that paving of the driveway in front of the new garage will be required, and this should either be asphalt, concrete, colored concrete per the city's mix, or pavers. So in regard to a recommendation, staff believes the proposal is consistent with the purpose of the historic preservation regulations by encouraging private ownership and use of property within the historic district, and recommends approval of MCAC 2006 for the construction of a new 2-car garage at 106 Washington with the following conditions. 1, if concrete is used to connect the garage to the street, it shall be colored per the city's adopted formula. Alternatively, pavers or asphalt shall be utilized. And 2, lighting information, fixtures, and specifications shall be provided to the planning department as part of the property improvement permit plans. I would add that if the applicant doesn't have information on the windows, which at this point I assume are either full vinyl or vinyl clad aluminum, but if he can't verify what the proposed material is, staff would be in favor of adding that information as requiring staff review and approval, again with some hopefully input from the commission at tonight's meeting. You have information regarding where the property is located in the Upper Washington subdistrict, and you've got a photo which actually shows that long shed roof addition on the other side of the property that I think helps illustrate why the garage roof actually kind of helps balance out that overall appearance. And of course, the application information with some other photos that the application provided in the packet. And the checklist, the applicability checklist is provided. It's pretty limited for a project like this, so staff didn't provide all of the pages that were basically blank and just tried to concentrate on the ones that were pertinent to the request. So and then you have your site plan and elevation drawings. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to provide whatever information I can.
Does anyone have any questions yet?
Nope.
Michelle, I'd like to ask, is there going to be a retaining wall?
There is a proposed extension. If you look on the site plan, there is a proposed extension. A proposed extension of the foundation wall along the southern side of the building. It comes out and is used for retainage as it extends out toward the house, east toward the house. I believe there's already a retaining wall along Lafayette in this area. But certainly, I think they're looking to try and keep that area as flat as possible as they were moving it closer to that rear property line.
Okay.
So yes, there will be, but it should be, and we can confirm this with the applicant, the grade is actually going down from this property south. So as you would travel, say down Lafayette from Washington, the grade would be going down. As you know, that road dips down as well. And so that grade back there follows. So I don't think you would actually see that retaining wall except maybe just the upper edge of it. It's actually going to be more exposed on that southern elevation, which you wouldn't really hardly see at all because Lafayette is one way going away from the property, basically. So it would be very hard to view that retaining wall, unless you just really wanted to.
Okay. And then I just had another question about, the applicant has said there's going to be an ADU on the top of the garage. Will that make it, can it have a massive building on top, or will it be about the same height as the house, or doesn't look like there's a variance for height, so I'm assuming it's going to be.
No, and there's no ADU on top of the garage. It's a single story structure. I think they were mentioning that may be left over for something. I didn't catch that in the application. I didn't see that.
Yeah,
They're proposing some living space, which they have told me is a workout room, basically, like a weight room or someplace to have their treadmill. And that's where what I'm calling the people door on the southern end of the front or side, depending on your perspective, the elevation that's facing into the property, that's facing the back of the house. On that southern end of the garage is where they would have some additional living space for the house.
Yeah, they call it an auxiliary living space.
Yeah, it's not an ADU. It would not have separate living.
Okay.
It's not an apartment or anything like that.
Okay. Well, I'm in favor of exercise. So
yeah, sure. I wish I had an exercise room. Yes.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And so at this time, I guess what we should do, and it won't affect us when it goes to the planning commission. This won't affect our decision because the electric wires and all that will come out to the appropriate commission. We're just looking at adding it into a historical area.
Right. The only impact that it could have is if the survey shows that those wires are as close as they appear to be, the applicant is going to have to either figure out with CSU about undergrounding the wires, which is very expensive, or probably reduce slightly the size of the building so that it can actually be pulled back from that front property line in order to make the clearance. That would be the only impact, but it would not have a significant impact on the design or how it would look from the street, other than potentially being a little bit farther back.
All right, thank you, Michelle. So at this time, if there's no further questions, if the applicant could come forward and introduce themselves and where you live.
Well, I had one thing to ask here.
Oh, good.
So yeah, I mean, he's got that retaining wall that runs along Lafayette, and then he's kind of got a quick shed sticking out to the south, and it's all loose stacked native material. Is he plan on retaining that for integrity to at least have some sort of appearance of what the original property was? Because as you said earlier, there is no elements of that building that are historically significant anymore, except for basically that wall that's facing the west and the south, that loose stack retaining wall. And if they're going to be putting, a garage up there, particularly with an impervious surface for a driveway, I mean, they could have some potential movement in that wall later down the road. So
yeah, they've not said anything other than what's shown on the site plan, where the foundation extends out, into basically the side of the yard there at that south end of the garage. They've not shown anything along Lafayette changing. So I think that's something that it would be good to ask the applicant, Mr. Gilliland, and have him advise whether he foresees that as a potential. Certainly, if there's a new retaining wall placed along Lafayette, that would need to, usually staff will approve retaining walls, but we would want to see that in an appropriate material.
Okay.
Okay.
So I got cut off there for a second. I didn't get all of Doug's question in the beginning there.
Sure. It was about, Mark, it was about let me just go ahead and get you to introduce yourself and give us your address, and then we can start discussion.
Sure, Mark Gilliland. Do you want the site, the job address? No,
your address.
My address. Oh, 11005 South Holmes Road, Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Great. So what Doug was asking about was if there's going to be any change. There's currently kind of a stacked rubble retaining wall along Lafayette. And do you anticipate there needing to be more of a structured retaining wall along there?
Yeah, it would be more structured for the integrity of the building. But then I think the homeowner would be fine with then reapplying maybe some rock up against it or something to make it look similar to what's there. I think he'd be fine with that. That would be no problem. And as you mentioned earlier, on the south side, that as that retaining wall goes around the corner, goes to the south side, that one's barely seen. We were thinking of just some colored concrete would be great along there, but that's up to you. You guys can decide that. Do you want me to address some of the other questions that you had brought up, Michelle, while I'm on?
If that works.
I just had a question just on the retaining wall, since you're talking about it. I know, Michelle, there's a lot of Manitou greenstone and very precise with grapevining walls up there. So this stack stone would be continued then, Mark, around? Or you're talking about concrete wall or?
So for the integrity of the garage, it would definitely be solid concrete.
Okay.
And then if a wall is desired, we can put a wall up against it, very, very similar, if not even use the same materials as to what's there. And it would just be applied or leaning up against it, if you will, just restacking it. But the garage wall itself would be solid concrete.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, I think if you want to go ahead, Mark, and address any of the other issues or questions, then we can circle back around and kind of sum up some of the information.
Okay. Yeah, the windows, we have selected the windows. They're going to be Anderson windows. So they're wood windows with metal clad on the exterior, and they'll match as close to possible what the house has. As far as the garage door itself, that's exactly right what Michelle said. We would much prefer one double garage door. His plan is to use it as a workout room, like she mentioned. So, in the summertime, he'd love to just leave the door open and it kind of be an extension in the garage, even out in the concrete driveway that we're putting in. One big area. Two doors would break that up a lot. It wouldn't be near as effective or as nice for him. And the lighting, yeah, not a whole lot of lighting except inside the garage. Of course, there'd be some lighting, and on the outside, the only thing we had planned is a couple of coach lights, and those are not on the plans, but nothing elaborate. No large overhead light in the back that we'd be adding. They do have a yard light at the moment. It's not very big, but we wouldn't be adding anything new that would obstruct anything in the street or anything. And other than that, yeah, I think Michelle summed it up pretty good. We're really just trying to echo the existing house. We don't see how we could make it look like a 100-year-old building, especially being that close to the existing house. I think the smartest thing is just to make it match what's there and make it blend in that way.
Are the coach lights downward facing lights or?
We haven't chosen the actual lights, but if there's a recommendation, it would be no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, we generally specify downward facing or with cutoff shields, so that there's no real light trespass off the property.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's no problem.
So from a staff standpoint, in regard to the retaining wall, obviously that will need to be added to the site plan, the one along Lafayette, and then we would want to see, I would not recommend some sort of stacked stone. I would recommend a mortared stone veneer. And certainly I think using the rubble, you know, that's there, stone from the site, that kind of thing to cover that would be in keeping with the surrounding area. There's actually some pretty significant rubble stone walls and even a garage structure right close to this property. So a little, when you get to this end of Washington, it starts transitioning into a little less formal and high style buildings and improvements. And so I think the rubble stone would work well down there.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Doug, did you have any other questions?
Me?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I have to honestly say that I mean, again, I was just out there looking at the property today, and I
okay.
looked at it yesterday, and I mean, I'm familiar with it, and I understand the design elements of the building. I mean, it goes without saying. Of course, you're going to want to it's in keeping with what the house is now. I mean, every house downhill from it, every house that's next to it in the neighborhood is fairly historically correct, or fairly, you know, has their old elements, slab siding, original wooding, windows, all that kind of stuff. But the thing I'm concerned about the most with this wall is that that's a free stack, hand stack stone wall made of materials, and right across the street from on Lafayette is the historic WPA wall. And you know, I'd really hate to see, you know, it just get bulldozed and put in a dumpster and hauled off. And next thing you know, you've got, you know, 8x14, you know, key blocks or something like that. I mean, I think that an effort to, you know, maintain and or preserve that original hand stack wall, you know, is about the only historic thing left on the property. I mean, I'm usually not one to really step up and say much about these projects. I hate to be a hassle to anyone. You know, I get it. But I mean, that house, outside of it being stuccoed and have all modern windows, has a 6-foot privacy fence around it. You see nothing of it except for that wall. I mean, that's a pretty big deal in all actuality. So, I mean,
I think the homeowner would actually agree with you, Doug. I think the homeowner would be a game for that. That would be fine.
You know, I mean, it wouldn't be too tough for them just to go in and trench, you know, put in a footer and a stem wall to support, you know, the garage contractor. You don't know that. I'm a GC. You know, before you know, regional is going to want to have you do soils, you know, so that way, you know, you have you'll probably have a soil. They'll probably want you to do a soil sample, so that way it'll carry the weight of the building. You know, I mean, you're going to have to do that anywho. So, I mean, definitely talk it over with your with the property owner and whatnot. But I'd like to see a real concerted effort to save that wall, as much of it, or in kind. You know, either remove it, save the stones, and then after the stem wall and pad has been poured for the garage, to have the wall reconstructed.
So your preference, Doug, would be to do either keep the existing stacked stone, or if they have to remove it, to put a concrete
Yeah, they can do a concrete wall and just dry stack up against it. You know, leave it a foot out, because they'll want backfill soils behind it anyway, so it can move and breathe like a good dry stack wall does. And then, you know, maybe even have a planter along the top of it, or somewhere to put reestablish the fence. I mean, if they want the fence back up.
I mean,
Because
if it
that
can be
fence is
done and
pretty
kept
new.
as a dry stack, that's fine. I don't have information that supports whether that dry stacked wall is actually historic or not. So
Right.
it may be.
Well, maybe the WPA was working on it.
It may have been.
Well, yeah, they may have removed what was across one side of the street and just carried it over to the other.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
that's how they did back then.
yeah, that's,
Right.
So,
they did a lot of that. You're
So
right.
I would suggest adding a condition that talks about that retaining wall and what you all want to see as far as, the resulting element of that, what it needs to look like at the end of the project.
And it sounds like the double doors just are necessary just because of the tight turn of the trying to get vehicles into and then wanting to open it up to the house for the exercise area too.
I'm
That
seeing
correct?
Mark shake his head.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want
okay.
you don't want to post in there. You don't
Yeah,
want to post.
I always hit our posts, so.
And the
Yeah.
doors, from what I saw in the drawings, have a real kind of a craftsman revival look to them. So
Yeah, okay, good. So any other comments, Neil or Ann? Okay, we're going to, Michelle, is there anyone in the public that wants to speak? Do we have anyone else here with their hands?
We don't have anybody in the audience is what I'm seeing Dylan say.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and close the meeting and then we can discuss as a commission and make our decisions. Thank you,
Okay.
Mark.
He's in transition when you thanked him there. I'll let you know when he pops back up on the.
Okay.
Okay.
So at this time, it sounds like for sure we want to add about the wall. Even though,
Yes.
I think that needs to be that. And the lighting is in. Is that correct, Michelle? The lighting is in?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could leave that in there and I'll just verify,
Okay.
what the final choice is.
Okay. Ann, did you have anything you wanted to add or say or
No.
make up anything?
No, thanks.
Okay. And Neil?
No, except I've got about 5 minutes, okay?
Okay. Okay. Well, I think we're very close to, I think someone making a motion and adding about the stacked stone and going forward. And then Michelle, you can let us know what the planning commission finally decides, but it sounds like the electric wires are going to probably have to do something.
Right.
I make a motion that we approve 03 MCAC 2006-106 Washington Avenue with the conditions of a review of the lighting and some sort of specifications concerning the preservation of the dry stock wall on the Lafayette side of the. Yes, Michelle.
I actually was just writing a condition for that. Number 3, the retaining wall along Lafayette shall remain, or if necessary, rebuilt to replicate the appearance of the existing wall.
Yeah,
Using the stones.
Yes.
they are. I'm
Appearance and materials.
looking at the photo review on
Uh-huh.
my other page right now. I mean, that's an old dry stack wall. That's what's in there. I mean, I have concerns about the property, subservient property downhill from them, but I'm sure that they'll probably do, good drainage as far as their driveway and whatnot. And, the house itself, I mean, Lafayette's pretty much just a water run anyways.
Yeah.
The way it's set up. I mean, that's why they had to do that WPA wall the way they did.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
So-
do we-
I'll second that motion.
The motion is seconded. Any discussion before we vote? All right, all in favor? Raise your hands and say aye. Anyone opposed? It passes unanimously.
Great.
Great.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Good timing, Neil.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
good
perfect.
timing.
I'm gonna take my leave. So nice seeing you guys.
Yeah.
Take
Thank
it easy,
you.
Neil.
I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for helping us.
All right,
too,
cheers.
Neil.
Cheers. And now, Michelle, we have a report about the survey as the next item of business. That's the historic
Dylan.
plan.
Yeah, Dylan's got something.
Oh,
It
Dylan.
looked like Mark raised his hand there at the end. I think he was responding to the thanks you guys gave him, but he has since logged out of the meeting. So.
Okay.
Bye, Mark.
I don't blame him.
Saw your hand.
Yeah, we just provided a project update from the consultant team, which I've asked them to try and do on a monthly basis whenever there isn't something that they're actually bringing to the commission. we're planning to do an actual presentation with hopefully some public outreach for the February regular HPC meeting. The only caveat to that is if we end up with a number of applications, which we'll know at the end of next week, then we might need to move it to its own separate meeting. But if there's only maybe one or two, if they're minor applications, then we'll try to be cognizant of everybody's time and try to do it on the regular meeting date. So I just wanted to let you know that that's the plan, and I'll update you all regarding that. And then we want to do some public outreach and advertise to try to get some public participation at that meeting, because they'll be presenting the preliminary, basically the draft plan, showing what they found and what their recommendations are, and what the city can be looking at as far as phasing and potentially, kind of overall costs and that type of thing. So it should be some really good information. And I did get some information to the next CLG grant. The grant applications are out, and the grant requests are due January 15th. So I am trying to get a grant application for CLG grant to do the first survey area. Even though it's a little ahead of our survey plan, I talked to the consultants and I talked to the state, and because we have so much surveying need, the consultants, the state agreed that although they may discuss whether doing a grant ahead of the survey plan being finished, could be an issue. Although we'll have the draft that will support the request that we'll make. But they encouraged us to go ahead and request anyway, because we've got so many surveying needs. It's not like it's not going to be something that's going to be needed. It's not like we would then get the plan and go, oh, we didn't need to do that area. And what they've actually requested or recommended is for us to do the Villas subdistrict, which has the Briarhurst, Red Crags, Rockledge, all of that. Frankly, the consultants were shocked, as we have been over the years, that whole area was left out of the National Register district. And they could foresee potentially, once it's surveyed, formally surveyed, that it could end up being a request for a small National Register district. So I'm working on that. And, if we get it, great. If we don't, it'll become the first application for funding, maybe with another phase or something, once the survey plan is done. So the plan would be to try to get this CLG grant once the survey plan is done, which will be early this year. Then we potentially will go for state historic fund funding as well for a larger project.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And
Sounds really good, Michelle.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of you have to put a little time in, but it's a no match grant, and it gets us an area of survey that's needed anyway. So it's kind of, and it's not a difficult application to do. I just have to find the time to carve out a little bit to do it. And I can use, a lot of the current grant application that we're working under. I can adapt that pretty easy, and just change some of the details. So actually, Felsberg Holt has given me a cost estimate that we can use, and kind of the same information that we got from them before. So that's a lot of help, very helpful.
Okay.
So I'll anticipate turning that in. I'll let you all know, and we'll see from there.
It's exciting to hear.
Yeah.
Yes,
Stuff.
I'm very happy.
very good.
Really
Yep.
pleased, yeah. So the next item is any notice of council action, Michelle?
I don't have any that pertains to HPC. There's a lot of stuff going on at council, but nothing specific to what you all are doing. So I don't have anything to update you on.
Okay, I didn't think so. I've been going to those Zoom meetings. So at this time, I guess we're, unless someone had any business or anything they wanted to bring up, we're ready to adjourn. Everyone is ready?
Yeah, ready.
Right?
6:45. That's the kind of
Whoa.
meetings I like.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we in the HPC are historical. We do that.
That's
We do.
right. That's right.
We're ready.
Well,
So-
thank you all. I hope you all had great holidays, and it's a good start to 2021.
All
Yeah.
right.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Good
Bye.
night. Y'all take care.
Night.